Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming. I appreciate you all, guys, whether you're watching me on YouTube or on Rumble. I was away for 1 week for vacation. I'm very happy to come back again, although the vacation went really well. So I want to apologize for not posting in the past 10 days because I wanted to take some time for myself and for my family. It was a tough year for me as well, and hence I wanted on a vacation for 1 week with my wife. Now that I returned, we have lots of news and lots of reports and lots of chaos and misinformation by the mainstream media around circulating around different cases in the world, including in Ukraine, Russia, and also surrounding the alleged assassination attempt against Donald Trump, the former president of the United States. For you, if you don't know me, if you're watching this channel for the first time, I'm not a supporter of Donald Trump. I'm not a supporter of Kamala Harris. I'm not a supporter of any politician in the United States. However, I do know that the deep states or some of the elements in the deep state, they don't want for Donald Trump to come back to power for obvious reasons. And I'm going to explain to you this in this live streaming. In 2016, I thought that if Trump comes to power, he will dry the swamp, he will end the wars, and he will withdraw from Syria, do this and that. He didn't do that. In the contrary, he increased the sanctions on Syria. Yes, he ended the regime change war initiated by the CIA against Syria, but he didn't end the swamp. He didn't end the wars. He just continued them. Let's say he also provoked Iran. He sent weapons to Ukraine in order to, as a preface for the current ongoing conflict in Ukraine, right? So I don't have an illusion. I'm not delusional enough to believe that this time Trump is going to be completely different and this time is going to dry the swamp. However, he's going to be better on some of the files and is going to be worse on other files. He's going to be better in Ukraine. He's going to take one step back from the nuclear Armageddon that we are faced nowadays. However, he's going to be worse, in my opinion, on Palestine and Iran. So those are just my opinions. However, when I watch the events in the United States of the second alleged assassination attempt against Donald Trump, and I did some investigation and I did some research online. And I found really interesting and fascinating, let's say, information about the guy who tried to kill or allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump. And his name is Ryan Routh. Now, at the beginning, I watched a video it's a propaganda video for the Azov battalion. The Azov battalion, for those who don't know, it's a self-proclaimed neo-Nazi battalion fighting against the Russian forces in Ukraine, and they have been active for a long time in Ukraine. They had their training camps in Ukraine, and many volunteers from all around the world used to come to Ukraine and go to their military camps and train in Ukraine. This is all before the current hostilities between Russia and Ukraine, right? So I was watching this video, and in this video, all of a sudden, this Ryan Routh appears. He's an American participating in a propaganda video for the self-proclaimed neo-Nazi battalion, the Azov battalion. So he was in this video. Now, the other thing that we learned about Ryan Routh, that he has been recruiting militants, people, volunteers from all around the world for Ukraine's International Legion. And I'm going to show you during this stream series of videos, everything that I'm telling you now in these notes that I made for this live streaming, every single idea and every single argument that I make, there is a video for it. So first, we're going to just read this and tell you these arguments and these points, and then we're going to come and back these arguments and these points with videos or statements or screenshots or whatever I found during my research. So Ryan Routh, he has been recruiting volunteers for the Ukrainian International Legion from all around the world, including he was attempting to bring people from Afghanistan and Iran, recruit them and smuggle them illegally to Ukraine to fight against the Russian forces. And if you calculate, or if you connect the dots, I mean, who is going to come from Afghanistan and fight against the Russian forces in Ukraine unless he is a radical Islamist, former Al-Qaeda, those are the ones who have grievances against Russia, and those are the ones who are going to come and fight against the Russian forces. Speaking of Al Qaeda, we have reports this week coming from Syria that Ukrainian intelligence assets are present now in Idlib. And for those who don't know, Idlib is in the northwestern side of Syria. It's a governorate, and it is mostly occupied by Al Nusra Front. Al Nusra is the Al Qaeda offshoot in Syria, and it's been occupied since 2013, 2014, right? And the Pentagon considers it the largest safe haven for the Al Qaeda terrorists in the world, the entire world, since 9/11. So the intelligence assets of the Ukrainian armed forces are now allegedly in Idlib recruiting people to send them to Ukraine, because Ukraine has a real problem with the manpower, right? 600,000 men have perished, fighters, soldiers, in the ranks of the Ukrainian armed forces, and many people are escaping the conscription. And there are countless of videos on X. You can watch them if you want, of people escaping, like running for their lives, while the recruiters, let's say forced recruiters of the Ukrainian armed forces, are running after them to send them to the meat grinder. Something that these people know. These men know that if they go to the front lines, they're going to die in a matter of a few days. So they don't want to do that. And now with the presence of this real problem, the manpower problem, they need volunteers from all around the world. That's why they encouraged all the neo-Nazi fascist elements in the European societies at the beginning of the war to go to Ukraine and fight in the Ukrainian armed forces among the Ukraine's International Legion. Now, speaking of this case, I think that the alleged assassination attempt against Donald Trump, it also reveals something important that I concluded after this alleged attack on Trump. This comes at the peak of the hysteria. When I say the peak of the hysteria, I mean the discussion about the long-range missiles. Now, Ukraine wants for the United States, the UK, Germany to give to supply them with long-range missiles and give them the permission to use the long-range missiles, right? So this is coming at the peak of this hysteria, the alleged attempt of assassination against Donald Trump, because Trump is going to take one step back from this conflict vis-a-vis Russia. So, in my opinion, the deep state in the United States, they want for this war to continue. People need to understand that not all the wars initiated or provoked by the US are meant to be won. For example, during the first Gulf War between Iran and Iraq, the United States was happy for the destruction of both countries. They didn't want for Iran to win, and they didn't want for Iraq to win. So they wanted for this war to be a war of attrition, mutually assured destruction. They wanted to destroy two strong regional powers with the potential of having a strong hold in the region and expanding their influence over the region and challenging the American hegemony. So they encouraged both sides to kill each other and destroy each other. In Afghanistan, they didn't have the intention to win the war. Rather, they wanted to prolong the war in order to recycle more money out of Afghanistan, trillions of dollars. People have to understand that we're speaking about trillions of dollars. Recycling money. This is black money going back into the pockets of these military contractors, going back into the military industrial complex, going back to the pockets of the bankers. Therefore, printing the money is something encouraged nowadays in the US by the Federal Reserve, because all this money is recycled and coming back to their pockets, and the people are paying more from their groceries, from their fuel, from their gas. But at the end of the day, the money is going to their pockets, right? So they're getting richer, we're getting poorer in this case. Every day, if you have $10,000 money in your bank, you're losing the money. You know that, right? You don't have to put $10,000 in a bank. That's like they're using your money, they're lending it to someone else, and then they're making profits out of it, percentages of profit. And also, when you want to cash out your money, they don't give you all your money. They have to ask you questions. And worse still, in a year, it decreases the value of your money. 2 decreases more, in 5 decreases more. So it's better to invest, in my opinion. If you have some cash money, buy gold or silver or bitcoins. I think this is not a financial advice, YouTube, just a personal opinion about this case. So they want for Ukraine and Russia to continue fighting. And if Trump is going to come to power and take one step back, then this is not going to be good for the business of generating money. And remember, BlackRock and all these banks are striking exclusive deals with the Kiev government to invest in Ukraine in the day after the war and reconstruct the country. So they, as much as there is destruction, as much as there is going to be investment and reconstruction efforts and processes, and this is going to end up in the pockets of these bankers and investors. So they don't want for Trump to come to power in this exact reason. So the third reason that they don't want Trump to come, because he, unlike Kamala Harris, he's not someone who submits easily. He bargains. He is a businessman. He bargains. Like with Joe Biden, I mean, there is no president in the United States, if you ask me, at the current moment. So they can impose anything they want on the current administration, even if it's against the interests of the administration itself. But with Trump, he's going to ask questions. He's going to ask for why is this and what's the potential outcome of it? What's the benefit? What's the pros and what's the cons? He compromises with them. He appoints someone from the establishment in his administration, and then he kicks him out, and he wants something in return. He's a businessman. He's a negotiator. They don't want someone who's talking much and asking for much. They want someone to submit completely. That's why. So I'm not making any compliments for Donald Trump. I'm just explaining his character and the nature of him. However, when it comes to power, it can be that this is completely different story. But if these assassination attempts are legit and they have really happened, then those are the reasons why they don't want Donald Trump to come to power. Now, let's go and see some of the fascinating, mind-blowing information that we found online about Ryan Routh, the guy who allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump only a few hours ago. First things first, those are all investigations and research being done by other people, and it is online. You can go and check and verify if you want, and you can see by yourself what I'm talking about. The first video that I wanted to show you, this is coming from the Facebook account of Ryan Routh. Now, when we see his posts and what he was posting, it's so mind-blowing that he has been posting advertisements for recruiting for the Ukrainian International Legion publicly on Facebook. He's been calling for it. Like, just check, for example, this is his account. This is his profile picture. He has, of course, a blue hair. It's something like little bit like it raises some questions. Pink. That's blonde and blue hair with the American flag on his shoulders and on his neck. So this is the guy who allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump, and this is his post on the 9th of July. He says, "Soldiers, please do not call me. We are still trying to get Ukraine to accept Afghan soldiers and hope to have some answers in the coming months. If you are interested in fighting in Ukraine, you must have a passport and send it to me by way of WhatsApp too." He even puts his number here. "You must also have the money to purchase an airplane ticket to Moldova. If you cannot afford the cost, you cannot go. We are also trying to get Taiwan to accept soldiers, hopefully in the coming years. Please have patience." I mean, who is we? When he speaks, like he's speaking in a plural. We are trying to do this. We're trying to do that. And if you go to other posts of him, for example, this one, he says, "Soldiers, we're working on getting invitation letters from Ukraine and the path, but soldiers must be able to apply for their own visas and pay for all travel and expenses to get to Ukraine and cannot ask any questions at all of Ukraine contacts." Contacts, yes. It will still take 6 months to a year. I don't have time to respond to hundreds of Facebook messages. And he posts this document from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry that he is accredited recruiter for the Ukrainian Armed Forces. And this guy was simply living in the United States. He says, "We currently need Afghan Special Forces soldiers that speak perfect English. Send me your passport, military certificates, and CV in one file by WhatsApp to this number." And then he starts writing in, maybe this is Urdu or Persian, And if you translate them, he says, don't call me at all. Simply send me your passport and CV to my WhatsApp number, this and that. So it's just the same thing over and over again. He says, I still need 2,000 soldiers with passports. If you want to go to Ukraine and fight, please send your passport to my WhatsApp number. There are many, many things that, for example, he is also bulldogging against Taiwan. He wants also to send fighters to Taiwan to fight against the Chinese government. And you can go and check yourself. Like, this is his profile, but unfortunately, the FBI or the American government, they have taken down his Facebook account, his X account, and all his accounts are gone from the internet. So you cannot find them. It seems that there was a coordinated cyber attack against his profiles, because they didn't want for the people to know his background and what he used to do previously, if he had any ties to the government or the CIA or any intelligence agency. However, there is a video of him. I'm going to show you his video when he speaks in English. And I don't know with who he was speaking here, to be honest with you. But from the context, he was trying to recruit people again for Ukraine, and he was complaining that Ukraine hasn't accepted yet to receive Afghan soldiers in its ranks. Take a look.
Ukraine is reluctant to be cooperative.
That's Routh, a U.S. citizen who set up the International Volunteer Center in Ukraine to help connect foreigners to Ukrainian military units.
Now I'm talking to over 100 soldiers every day, and pretty much everybody, all of my contacts in Ukraine, they were adamant, pretty much yelled at me every time that I suggested that we bring in Afghans.
The Ukrainian government didn't respond to our request for comment, but a source close to the officials in Kiev told Semaphore that their top concern is the question of loyalty in the thick fog of war.
The biggest thing is spies. They're afraid that anybody and everybody is a Russian spy.
Those concerns aren't completely unfounded. Russia's notorious private military group, Wagner, has reportedly begun recruiting Afghan commandos. Semaphore reviewed these text messages from Afghan soldiers, which tell the same story.
Ukraine is reluctant.
So he says that Ukraine is reluctant to receive Afghan soldiers or Afghan volunteers in the international legion. He also mentions that the biggest question is they're afraid of Russian infiltrators, that the Russians would probably recruit agents among the volunteers to go and fight with the Russian forces. And this is something, by the way, the Russians do, and they have done it before. For example, in Syria, some of the leaders of ISIS were from Chechnya. So, in my opinion, this was a plan by Putin and Kadyrov to send other volunteers from Chechnya who are pro-Kadyrov and pro-Putin to infiltrate the ISIS ranks. So they know their activities, they know their locations, and at the end of the day, they can just leave a small equipment of a GPS somewhere, and then the airstrike comes. And this has definitely happened, in my opinion. There were some, because if the Syrian government did this, of course the Russians did this. I mean, in some of the cases, for example, in the suburbs of Damascus, the high-ranking clerics or military commanders among these terrorist groups were infiltrators from the Syrian government. And they have pretended that they are anti-government, and they have operated among, let's say, these terrorists in order to give information to the government, locations, artilleries, tanks. What do they have? What don't they have? What are their capacities? And when the Syrian army started liberating these areas, they came out as infiltrators, and they said, oh, we were spies working on the side of the Syrian government, and they were received like heroic, they received them like heroes. So things like that happened. Of course, now the Ukrainians are afraid to receive the Afghanis because, first, this is going to be bad marketing for their cause. What are these Afghanis doing in Ukraine? Don't you have manpower left? So you're so desperate to receive people from Afghanistan. Secondly, who are these Afghanis going to fight? Are they Qaeda? Are they Islamists? Are they Salafists? Are they Wahhabis? What are they? This is going to raise lots of question marks about this case, and also the infiltrators. So they're afraid of the infiltrators in this case. Now, this guy, Ryan Routh, he posted his own phone number, the American phone number, right, on social media, and asked people to contact him if they want to send him WhatsApp messages if they want to go and fight in Ukraine. And someone, apparently his name is Jason Ring, he called this number to see what would be the answer now if somebody calls this number and the phone is closed. So this is what you can hear when you call Ryan Routh's phone number.
This is Ryan in Hawaii with Camp Box Buildings and also the National Volunteer Center sending soldiers to Ukraine as well as Taiwan. If you'd like to volunteer, please send me a message by WhatsApp, Viber, Telegram, Signal, Facebook, any of the messaging services, and I will respond. I do not do voicemail, so please do not leave me a voicemail message. I will never get it. Thank you so much.
Do you really think that somebody working this publicly to recruit people from the United States, from European countries, from Afghanistan, from the rest of the world, it was like somehow it doesn't have any connections to the Pentagon, the CIA, the DOD? I don't know. It's just, I don't really believe that this guy he's either a complete idiot, a moron, that he was used like a useful idiot by the security apparatuses in the US and probably other security apparatuses as well in Ukraine, or he was working with them. He was an agent, right? He was a collaborator with the CIA. I don't know. I don't think that the CIA and the other intelligence agencies have missed somehow that there is a guy recruiting people, sending them to Ukraine. I completely do not believe that. Even in a third world country, it wouldn't happen. The intelligence agencies would capture this. It's public on Facebook, on Twitter, on all his accounts. He has his number posted. He has a voicemail you can hear. Everything was quite clear, right? In this case, our friend Patrick Henningsen posted a really nice explanation of this case. I would like to read it to you, and then we will go and watch a really good investigation by another investigator in this case. He says, latest Trump shooter has CIA fingerprints all over. So here is the latest daily shooter to target Trump, a curious character named Ryan Routh. And as we will show you here, he is hardly incidental in this story. Routh could be many things, but let's just go with the general heading of assets, informants, dupes, and other useful idiots. Below is a video he features in what is clearly a planted story interview for Newsweek Romania, filmed in Kiev in June 2022. Later we will watch this video that the Newsweek, they have made a video of him, 10 minutes, but I'm going to show you like 1.5 minutes of it, in June 2022, and it was quite clearly that this was a planted story interview, as Patrick says in this case. Undoubtedly, this was a part of a US intelligence operation or forward information operations intending to promote the idea of a spontaneous grassroots recruitment drive for soldiers of fortune to go and fight the good fight in Ukraine. An operation roughly modeled after the international brigades in Spain in the 1930s, and not unlike similar CIA-led AstroTurf recruitment for NATO and Gulf-backed Mujahideen foreign fighters in Syria between 2011 and 2019. For those who are not aware, US outlets like Time Magazine and Newsweek have been traditionally used by CIA for propaganda and limited hangouts for international audiences, especially for active US-UK covert action theaters like Syria and Ukraine. The Ryan Routh story is yet another prime example of this. Based on this, then it is not a stretch to conclude that he is most likely an asset or useful idiot who was on the books to be deployed for specific roles. This latest incident in Florida being his swan song. Take a look. I just want to show you this video because you can understand a lot from from this video about his character, his upbringing, his thinking, his intellectual capacity. For me, if you ask me, I think he's a useful idiot. But I let you judge. Take a look.
Please tell me who you are and why are you here?
I'm 56 from the U.S. From North Carolina originally, so live in Hawaii now. So flew all the way from Hawaii here. So the question as far as why I'm here, to me, you know, a lot of the other conflicts are gray, but this conflict is definitely black and white. This is about good versus evil. This is a storybook, you know, any movie we've ever watched. This is definitely evil against good. I mean, we're battling a situation here where, you know, the Ukrainians and the rest of the world are caring and kind and generous and unselfish and take care of one another. And it's just a matter of, you know, we need to stand up for that. That is the most important thing in the world, is just to show human beings that we're kind and we're caring and that we take care of one another and that the world is united so that we feed each other and make sure that, you know, we all move forward as one collective whole unit. So, you know, we feel the pain of one country's failure and their conflicts, and we enjoy the successes of other countries that are doing good, and we all work together. And for some reason, Russia does not grasp this concept that we're all one unit, and we have to get along and work together and be normal human beings. This is 2000.
Sorry, but I just, when I see this video, I truly think like this guy is like, I don't know. I met so many people like him, like low IQ, alcoholic type of a guy, and his vision of the world, the view of the world, is black and white. And if he really thinks that it's the Russians are the only invaders, maybe he missed the past 20 to 30 years, 40 years, 50 years of all the wars that the United States have waged against the rest of the world. But in this case, he feels like he is entitled to participate. And he's very passionate. He's very passionate. He even participated in a propaganda video for the Azov battalion that I wanted to show you. And I forgot, this is just an 18-second video I cut from the propaganda video so that you see him in the propaganda video. Check.
I am Azov, I'm Mariupol, I'm Ukraine. Sorry, it's really hard, but the purpose of the action is to appeal to what leaders, what organization.
You saw him in the.
I am Azov, I'm Mariupol, I'm Ukraine. Sorry, it's really hard, but the purpose of the action is to appeal to what leaders, what organization, with a demand to provide a green corridor.
This was him in the Azov propaganda video when Azov was besieged in Mariupol. Azov says about themselves that they are neo-Nazis. It's not like I'm making an assumption against them. They say we are neo-Nazis. And it has been normalized to promote the Azov battalion, just like it was normalized to promote these rebels in Syria, who were nothing but Qaeda type terrorists. So we were living in an upside down world, you know, and people like him, maybe he found this is probably, it was generating him some money. I don't know. I don't know what was his motives really. Like, it's really strange to see him so passionate about this and not about other cases. But he was involved and heavily embedded with the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. He was accredited by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense to be a recruiter for the International Legion. So he played important role. We don't know how many people he recruited. We don't know how many people he sent there, but this is so really strange in my opinion. And you remember that I mentioned that the Ukrainian intelligence assets are in Syria, in Idlib, basically, in order to recruit people from the ranks of al-Nusra. And al-Nusra is an offshoot of Al-Qaeda in Syria, right? Now, I received this report from Syria. And I also asked a friend in Turkey who confirmed to me, he's also a journalist, that this could be possible. Now, so I don't go and believe what the Russians say, and I don't go and believe what the Syrians say, and I don't go to believe the Iranians, what they say, like without the blinking of an eye or without a grain of salt. However, I try to confirm, I try to ask people. So I asked in Syria, and sources, journalistic sources, confirmed that Ukrainian intelligence assets are in Idlib. A source in Turkey confirmed to me similarly. And now the Russian foreign minister says the same thing. So there's something being cooked. We don't know. I mean, look, I'm Syrian. If you ask me, maybe the Syrians would say, "Yalla, let's go. Let them go, to Ukraine. It's better instead of killing us." But we don't want for the Russians to die or for the Ukrainians to die in this case, right? But if Zelensky is so desperate that he doesn't have more manpower to fight, then he should find other places to attract fighters, right? And one of the places where the fighting is frozen is Idlib. And all these jihadists with heavy guns are sitting there and doing nothing, basically, multiplying. Maybe if they have cash and some incentives and also motivation, remember, because the Russian Air Force has kicked their asses. So they have the motivation, they have their prejudices against the Russian forces, so they would like to go and fight, just like they did in Afghanistan in the past, right? However, this is the foreign minister of Russia affirming or confirming the same thing that I'm telling you. Patrick says, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says, emissaries of Ukrainian intelligence are in Idlib, Syria, and are recruiting militants from Jabhat al-Nusra or Al-Qaeda in Syria. These reports have also been confirmed by Turkish media. So Ukraine's Nazis and Al-Qaeda, both backed by the US, UK, EU, have now joined forces to attack Russian targets. Idlib is the Western-backed Al-Qaeda stronghold where terrorist brigades have effectively occupied that Syrian province since 2015. I'm going to show you this video, what Lavrov had to say.
Украинские спецслужбы, пользуясь вот такими услугами со стороны западных покровителей, параллельно активно вовлекают в террористическую деятельность радикальных исламистов. Мы благодарим всех присутствующих здесь за соболезнования в связи с терактом в концертном зале Крокус Сити Холл в марте этого года, который унес жизни 145 человек. Расследование, которое продолжается, но уже выявило свидетельство вовлеченности в его подготовку Главного управления разведки Министерства обороны Украины. В частности, были тщательно спланированы пути отхода убийц через российско-украинскую территорию. Ну и это был не единичный случай, когда украинские спецслужбы привлекли радикальных исламистов к подготовке организации теракта. Сейчас получила хождение информация о том, что украинские эмиссары украинской разведки находятся в Идлибской зоне деэскалации на территории Сирийской Арабской Республики, где вербуют боевиков Джабхат ан-Нусры, она так раньше называлась, сейчас она называется Хият Тахрир аш-Шам, для того, чтобы задействовать их в новых своих планируемых гнусных операциях. И не забудем, что уже они бросают свой взор и дальше на юг, на Сахаро-Сахельскую зону африканского континента, где также вместе с завербованными экстремистами осуществляют террористические атаки на вооруженные силы правительств целого ряда стран. Вы об этом, конечно же, знаете.
So, some people are asking me how many men are in the Syrian military. In the official Syrian military, the number of the active soldiers are around 300,000. But after the war, paramilitary groups or affiliated groups have been also established, the National Defense Forces. I think the numbers are also around 300,000. So probably between the official and non-official numbers are around 600 or 500,000 fighters in the ranks of the government. Thank you so much for the welcoming back to me. It's also good to be back actually and work and do something productive. Although vacation is also great, right? And especially when it's in Greece with great food, great weather. and the sea is just like it's fascinating, you know, like you feel like it's so much, it resonates Syria. I feel like it's like Syria. The especially the people, very generous, very welcoming, very hospitable. It's great. I really loved it, and I would really love to go back for another occasion to Greece. Now, this alleged assassination attempt against Trump, as I mentioned, it came at the peak of the hysteria and the talk about long-range missiles. Putin said that if you supply long-range missiles, this means that direct participation of NATO and other European countries in this conflict, because this type of long-range missiles, from the Russian perspective, mean that the Ukrainians have to use the NATO satellites, and also the operatives, those who are going to fire the missiles, are going to be from NATO and not Ukrainians, because they need more training to start shooting or firing these missiles. But if they're going to do it in the next week or two, then the NATO operatives are the ones who are going to fire these missiles, right? So there's so much fantasies nowadays about defeating Russia. And I think this is coming from hatred, Russophobia, and it is counterproductive for the people who want to defeat Russia. The people who want to defeat Russia, this is just my message for them, they have to listen what the Russians are saying. What are their concerns, and what are their red lines, and what would they accept and what wouldn't they accept, and they try to find the middle ground between them. But if they're going to try to completely eliminate the Russian point of view, like you block all the Russian TV channels, radios, you consider everyone who is working with Russian outlets, foreign agents, and you completely then black out and you exclude their point of view from the discussion, then your own people in your own countries, they would be misinformed and disinformed, because they would not know, or uninformed completely, what the Russian side says. Because when you do that, then probably the people think that the Russians are completely insane, irrational, and Putin just woke up in the morning and he invaded Ukraine, right? But if you show them what the Russians say, probably the people would be less enthusiastic about war, right? And this is something that the elites in the West are trying hard to do, to hide the other side of the story. Like they tried to hide the other side of the story in Syria, like in Libya, like in Iraq, right? And in this case, however, it's very dangerous, because Russia is a nuclear power, and we are seeing so many fantasies of defeating Russia. One of these people who is fantasizing on killing 45 million Russians is Jake Bro. He says he's a former nuclear and missile operations officer at the US Air Force with the Ukraine flag in his bio, and then he has become a YouTuber with 500,000 subscribers. So he says if Russia uses a nuclear weapon against a NATO country, then this is what will happen to Russia in response. About 45 million Russians will be vaporized in the first hour. Not much of a life remaining for the other 100 million. Maybe the people of Russia should stop supporting Putin and de-escalate the conflict. In the comments, it's interesting. Scott Ritter says, "Dude, you are dumber than death." Samad 2023 alone destroys the US. Yars 2011 with Avangard 2019. Those are maybe types of weapons with nuclear warheads. Takes out your Minuteman 3. Bulava 2019 cleans up what remains. Take your Cold War wet dream somewhere else. Wall Street Silver says, and Russia would retaliate with a full release of their nuclear missiles on Europe and the USA. You left that part out of your simulation. Thomas, who was our guest multiple times on our channel, he says, you people are so stupid or corrupted that you make me want to vomit. First of all, if Russia strikes against a NATO country, it will be a first strike with a barrage of missiles to every NATO country. Secondly, if NATO attacks Russia like that, Russia will retaliate with everything she got even before first missile has hit Russia's soil. You're mad. People, you forgot the part where Moscow vaporizes NATO in return. Like, I'm happy to see this type of discussion, right? Because these people, if you're on mainstream media outlet and they fantasize something like this, killing 45 million Russians, I think that nobody would challenge him. But when you're on social media This is what happens. Many people come to challenge your narrative or your ignorance or your arrogance or your fantasies. So you have to be careful when you're on social media and expressing your opinion about such cases. But this is not exclusive to the people and this type of retired generals, journalists, etc. It's also among the politicians, those who are supposed to take decisions of going to war and decisions of signing a peace treaty. And one of which, um, I think this guy is the leader that I hate the most in the world. I don't think there is anyone that can surpass him. Maybe Netanyahu. Yeah, Netanyahu definitely surpasses him. He comes second, let's say. And this guy is Justin Trudeau. He's the fascist president or the prime minister of Canada, who pretends to be progressive, pretends to be multiculti and all this cute stuff, but he's a fascist deep inside. He's the one who invited a former SS veteran to the parliament and gave him a standing ovation and this and that. So Canada's Trudeau wants Ukraine to strike deep into Russia with Western weapons. So this is what he says in this. If you're a Canadian, I would like to know your opinion about this. Do you agree what Justin Trudeau says?
Vladimir Putin says Russia will be at war with NATO if Ukraine uses long-range missiles deep into Russia. How far into Russia do you think Ukraine should be able to strike?
Vladimir Putin is striking regularly in the heart of Ukraine. He's sending missiles and bombs at hospitals, at daycare centers, at families and communities across Ukraine. And it was his choice to invade a neighboring sovereign nation. His choice to start this conflict, and it could be his choice to end it tomorrow. All he has to do is pull back his troops into Russian territory. But he won't do that. He is not just trying to remove any choice that Ukrainians have around where they want their future to go, remove their independence, remove their sovereignty. He's trying to deeply destabilize the international rules-based order that protects us all, not just in every democracy around the world, but in all countries around the world. Any country with a neighbor with a slightly larger army should be worried if it suddenly becomes allowed to invade and redraw lines on the map. And that's why Canada and others are unequivocal that Ukraine must win this war against Russia. And we will continue to be there to support Ukraine. And yes, Canada fully supports Ukraine using long-range weaponry to prevent and interdict Russia's continued ability to degrade Ukrainian civilian infrastructure and mostly to kill innocent civilians in their unjust war.
I would have believed him if he wasn't supporting Israel and its onslaught against Gaza. I would have believed him if he was sanctioning Israel. I would have believed him that if he joined the ICJ case against Israel with South Africa. I would have believed him if he was consistent on international law and rules-based order. But rules that they make doesn't apply, and this type of rules do not apply on them. And when it comes to Russia, they want to apply it. And I think that international law must be applied on all countries. And if you are a preacher of a rules-based international order and you are a hypocrite and your double standard is so obvious, I just can't stand you. And especially just this guy is just like, I still remember what he did during the Corona times to the people of Canada. This guy has the potential to become a dictator, right? And don't get me wrong. I don't think that this guy is just an independent actor. He is a plant. He has been planted in the establishment, in the elites of Canada. He has been groomed to become a prime minister. He has been supported, groomed, and prepared, and trained. And I get scared by these people because, not like I get scared, terrified, but because I know that they don't care about their people, they don't care about the interests of their people, they don't care about humanity at all. They care only and only about serving. These people are servants for bigger powers. And don't tell me who are these bigger powers. During the Corona times, we have seen that there are non-state actors. We have billionaires. We have people in shadows. They have made decisions and they have imprisoned people at homes. They have made ridiculous rules. They have closed people's bank accounts. They have done enormous damage to the middle class. Although some of the middle class were submitting and they thought this is for their own good, this was all a big conspiracy against the ordinary people. And people like Trudeau, they are the ones who could start World War III, by the way, because they don't care. They don't care about their own people and they don't care about the faith of humanity. So that's why I get terrified and scared. Not like when I see him, I get scared. If I see him, I probably punch him in the face. No, I'm just joking, YouTube, okay? I'm not going to do that. I will probably only say some words, tough words against him. Nothing more, YouTube, okay? Don't take this video down. Another video that I want to show you, this time is coming from Germany, and I have to be careful with what I say when it's about Germany, because I personally live in Germany and I don't have suicidal thoughts and I don't want to have further troubles here. So until further notice, I'm just going to show you this video of a general, an officer in the German army, Bundeswehr. His name is Christian Freuding. He smirks and his crazy googly eyes get wider at the thought of Ukraine striking deep inside Russia. He gets super excited when referring to, quote, first foreign troops on Russian soil since World War II. I'm going to show you the video with no further comments, okay? Take a look.
Also es ist richtig, diese Offensive in Kursk hatte ein mehrfaches Rational. Worum es den Ukrainern in erster Linie ging, war erstmal die Entlastung im Donbass, Entlastung zu schaffen, indem man die Russen dazu zwingt, dass sie Truppen in den Bereich Kursk verlegen müssen. Ein zweites Rational war, eine sogenannte Pufferzone einzurichten, dass nicht aus dem Bereich Kursk quasi ununterbrochen in die Oblaste Kharkiv und Sumy gewirkt werden kann. Ich glaube, wir haben ja auch einige Bilder gesehen, wie es in Kharkiv aussieht, wo die nördlichen Stadtteile quasi täglich unter Beschuss stehen. Ein drittes.
I just want you to focus now on his eyes, how he gets excited when he speaks about foreign forces on Russian territories since World War II.
Das Rational war natürlich eine Art Faustpfand zu haben. Es war auch ein Rational, die russische Propaganda der Spezialoperation Lügen zu strafen. Zum ersten Mal seit weit über einem halben Jahrhundert stehen wieder fremde Truppen auf russischem Boden. Und natürlich sollte das auch einen psychologischen Effekt haben. Nach innen für die Ukraine, als Bestärkung für die ukrainischen Streitkräfte, als Bestärkung für die ukrainische Gesellschaft und auch nach außen gegenüber den Unterstützerstaaten als Signal, ja, wir können was, wir schaffen das, wir setzen auf eure weitere Unterstützung auf dem Weg zum Erfolg.
Warum wären solche Langstreckenwaffen aus Sicht der Ukraine so wichtig für den Kriegsverlauf und warum haben die Ukrainer anscheinend keine Angst vor einer Eskalation?
Also ich kann das nur aus militärischer Sicht beurteilen, da sind solche Langstreckenwaffen natürlich sehr gut geeignet, gegen Hauptquartiere, gegen logistische Knotenpunkte, aber auch gegen Flugplätze zu wirken, gegen Ansammlung von Flugzeugen zu wirken. Das ist ja ein besonderes Problem für die Ukrainer an der Front, dass sie mit diesen Gleitbomben, die immer stärkeres Ausmaß, immer größere Sprengkraft auch bekommen, dass sie mit denen, von denen getroffen werden, das zu erheblichen Verlusten führt. Und die einzige Möglichkeit, sich dieser Gefahr zu erwehren, ist eigentlich, die Flugzeuge, die Flugplätze noch anzugreifen, sodass diese Gefahr gar nicht erst entstehen kann. Wenn die Flugzeuge mal in der Luft sind, diese Gleitbomben einsetzen, sind sie de facto durch Luftverteidigungs- und Flugabwehrmaßnahmen nicht mehr abzuwehren.
Look, technically speaking, if they give Ukraine long-range missiles to strike deep inside, technically he is correct. They can hit Russian air bases, they can hit logistical hubs, they can hit maybe weapon depots, etc. But there is something important here. When Russia said this is a special military operation, it's a limited military operation still. It's not an all-out war. If it's an all-out war and they're going to carpet bomb Ukraine, they can destroy Ukraine and turn it into ashes. And this is not something, in my opinion, productive even for Russia itself, because at the end of the day, they have to coexist with the Ukrainians. And coexisting with the Ukrainians require them to be to prepare for a certain environment for them to coexist in the future. And also, there are many people in Ukraine, they don't want for this war to continue, and they don't think that the Russians are their enemies. Some of them are pro-Russians, right? And still living in areas in the hands of the Ukrainian government. So the unwise thing to do is to carpet bomb Ukraine. But if you give Ukraine long-range missiles and allow them to strike deep inside, let's say a long-range missile hit the Kremlin or hit somewhere in Moscow sensitive, and rest assured they would do it. Ukrainians would do it. Then the type of the strikes against Ukraine will also change. And this time you will see that Russia is striking the bridges, civilian infrastructure, all the electricity generators, and the probably sensitive government buildings, the presidential palace, etc., etc. So, yeah, you can give them these weapons, but because Russia already has this type of weapons and they can manufacture way more than what you can actually supply to Ukraine, so the end goal is only going to prolong the war. And this is what I said. They don't want for the war to come to an end. They want to prolong this war. This is the reason why they want to give Ukraine long-range missiles and say, look, Putin is bluffing. He's not going to attack us. Let Ukrainians use these missiles. Now, this is only going to prolong the inevitable. I'm sometimes the English that comes to my mind is uninevitable. No, it's not uninevitable. Anyways, something that is certain going to happen, and that is one of the two things. It's either the Russians and the Ukrainians are going to sign a peace treaty with the current contact line and neutralize Ukraine, which means Ukraine cannot become a NATO country, or Russia is going to continue occupying more territories. So, what is the interest of Ukraine in this? Right? And how many missiles should NATO countries provide to Ukraine to emerge victorious? Because they say Ukraine must win this war. That means that they have to supply Ukraine with thousands of long-range missiles. But they're not able to produce all these numbers of missiles to Ukraine. And they are not able to give and supply them with all these weapons. And even if they did, they have to come and operate it themselves, because otherwise they need to train the Ukrainian armed forces on these types of weapons. And they cannot. It's not like something you can train on it in 2 days, right? It takes time. It takes months, sometimes years. So, in this case, I have no doubts that the Russians will just overcome this challenge. And I'm not saying this because I want for the US to lose this. I'm just really saying this in an objective manner. And this is something that I've been repeating since 2022. And I was calling for a peace treaty before. Even when the Russians stepped 1 meter inside of Ukraine, in the current Ukraine, I always called for a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine, and keep all this Donbas region to Ukraine, giving them an autonomy. And Crimea, forget about it. It's going to happen World War III about Crimea. And it was a Russian territory anyways for a very long time. But Ukraine was able to get a better deal, so much better deal with the Russians. But Putin is the Nazi, is the Hitler of the 21st century, is going to occupy all of Europe, this and that, and you are going to block all their TV channels, and you're going to consider everyone working for Russian TV channels foreign agents, and you want to deprive your people of the other side of the story. Nobody knows what Russia says. But we have like YouTube channels like myself, we want you to know what the Russians say in this case. Like we're showing you what the other side is saying and what the German general is saying in this case, right? So listen to Putin, because Putin is the head of Russia and he's the commander-in-chief of the Russian armed forces. And this is what he says about the long-range missiles. I want you to focus on the subtitles because it's a little bit fast in this case. And I'm just going to remove myself and for you to see what Putin says, for us to understand what could be the reaction of Russia if Ukraine receives these long-range missiles and strikes inside of Russia. Take a look.
В последние дни мы видим и слышим, как на очень высоком уровне Великобритании и США муссируется тема о том, что киевский режим сможет наносить удары вглубь территории России западными вооружениями большой дальности. И, судя по всему, это решение либо вот-вот будет принято, либо, судя по всему, вообще уже принято. И эта вещь, конечно, экстраординарная. Хотелось попросить прокомментировать то, что происходит.
Происходит попытка подмены понятий, потому что речь не идет о разрешении или запрете киевскому режиму наносить удары по российской территории. Он и так наносит с помощью беспилотных летательных аппаратов и другими средствами, но когда речь идет об использовании высокоточного оружия большой дальности западного производства, это совершенно другая история. Дело в том, что я уже об этом говорил, и любые эксперты это подтвердят, и у нас, и на Западе, наносить удары современными высокоточными системами большой дальности западного производства украинская армия не в состоянии. Она не может этого делать. Это возможно только с использованием разведданных со спутников, которыми Украина не располагает. Это данные только со спутников или Евросоюза, либо на Соединенных Штатах, в общем, с натовских спутников. Это первое. Второе, и очень важное, может быть, ключевое, заключается в том, что полетные задания в эти ракетные системы могут, по сути, вносить только военнослужащие стран НАТО. Украинские военнослужащие делать это не могут. И поэтому речь идет не о том, чтобы разрешать украинскому режиму наносить удары по России этим оружием или не разрешать. Речь идет о том, чтобы принять решение о том, что страны НАТО напрямую участвуют в военном конфликте или нет. Если это решение будет принято, это будет означать не что иное, как прямое участие стран НАТО, Соединенных Штатов, европейских стран в войне на Украине. Это их прямое участие. И это уже, конечно, существенным образом меняет саму суть, саму природу конфликта. Это будет означать, что страны НАТО, США, европейские страны воюют с Россией. А если это так, то, имея в виду изменение самой сути этого конфликта, мы будем принимать соответствующие решения, исходя из тех угроз, которые нам будут создаваться.
So, supplying Ukraine with this type of weapons requires the direct participation of NATO specialists, and this will change the essence of the conflict, says Putin. So, what do you think, guys? First of all, what do you think about Ryan Routh's alleged attempted assassination attempt against Donald Trump? Do you think this was a deep state operation? Do you think it was a psyop? Do you think it was fake? What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. I'm also interested to know your opinion about the saga and the discussion about these long-range missiles. Where do you stand? And what do you think the reaction of Russia would be? Until then, thank you so much for tuning into today's live streaming. I have a wish, or what they say in German, a bitte. If you're watching this video, please hit the like button before leaving it. It really, you give me a great service, because when you like it, more people can see this video and watch it. And this will increase the viewership of this channel, which I'm working on very hard. And if you like to support the independent work I'm doing on Syriana Analysis, you can become a patron. By becoming a patron, you support this channel financially. and you support my independent journalism and analysis to bring to you quality content like this, to do the research and the content to you, and to spread it to as much as people. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in for today's live streaming. The link is scrolling on the screen if you want to see it, the Patreon account. And I will see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. Eastern American Time. Peace be upon you, upon your families. Salam.